Hello, and welcome to the 10th meeting of the Top Shelf Society. We are going on a year, and it's crazy, and it's wonderful. And today we are going to be talking about The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. But before we do, let's introduce our members. So I'll go first. I am Kristin, and my channel is Perks of a Bookflower. I'm kind of in like a bookish hiatus right now. I'm still reading, but not making a lot of videos, but maybe you'll see some soon. Sara?
Hi. I always get surprised when, I am Sara. Me and my cat, we make videos and we talk about I talk about the books. She just kind of listens. And we just have a great time. And that's pretty much me.
A very great time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Angela.
I'm Angela, and my channel is Angela Rose Reads. The same as Kristin, basically everything. The same, exactly. Like, I'm kind of on a hiatus of filming right now, but I've been reading like crazy. So hopefully soon I will get the motivation to like film about it. But yeah, I read. We always say what we read. I read everything, but I realize that I have an entire bookshelf of just fantasy. So I think I have to say that I read mostly fantasy. Yeah.
And I'm Laura. I have a channel called Laura Reads Pages, and I also read everything. And right now it's dark here, it's pouring rain, and there's lots of thunder and lightning. So I'm just so happy to, be here chatting with you.
Yeah, it's all cozy.
It's all cozy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Yeah, so my name's Stephanie. My channel is Stephanie's Bookverse, and I read mainly fantasy books with some sci-fi, but I do throw a little bit of other stuff in there as well. So.
And hi, I'm Ysenia. My channel is my first name. I read a little bit of everything too, but I actually turned on my camera for the first time in forever.
Yay!
And I tweeted it yesterday, but I'm going to be cooking something up for my channel. So we'll see how that goes.
Yum.
Yay, exciting.
Really good.
All right, so that's us. We're the Top Shelf Society. And this month, like I said, we're talking about The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. But before we go too much into depth about it, I want to tell you about next month's pick. So our April book is going to be Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I probably said that wrong, and I'm sorry. It will be on April 30th. That's a Friday at 8 p.m. And just a little bit about our next book. Basically, this book tells a story of Clara, and it's kind of like a sci-fi book. And Clara is something called an artificial friend who basically stays in a store and watches other people and their behaviors, and she hopes that maybe one day a customer will choose her, I guess, to be with or something like that. It sounds really intriguing.
Kind of like Descender, where he's just like the friend for the little boy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, but anyways, let's talk about this month's book. So The Midnight Library is basically a story about a girl named Nora who kind of has just gotten in a bad place in her life. And then, like, in the middle of her sorrow, she winds up at this place called the Midnight Library. And basically, imagine, like, every single choice you made in your life, how that might have made a difference in the outcome of your life, like a new life was created almost. Well, it's every single version of Nora's life that could have been. And she basically gets to step into these other lives and live them. Like relationships she could have stuck with, or careers she could have pursued. And so it's kind of following Nora as she decides what life she wants to live, or if she even wants to live at all, I would say. Do you guys add anything to that?
No, that was pretty good.
No, that pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Thorough. Meets expectations or exceeds.
Yes. There's also a cat, so makes
A
it
requirement. Yeah.
better. Yeah. All right. So I thought we could just really quickly, before we jump into content, maybe talk about predictions for who we think this would be a top shelf read for. If we have any ideas?
I never know. We're all like wild cards to me.
I didn't actually post it on Goodreads this time because I always put my rating up and then I see Ysenia over there liking it, and so she had a time, and I'm like, this time I didn't.
I feel like this is a harder one to guess than other books.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I usually feel like I have an idea of who's going to like and who's not, but I don't know with this.
I know,
Laura-
I have no idea.
I feel like Laura will like it. I feel like it will be 5 stars for her.
I think Laura will like it.
Yeah.
I think Angela will think it's okay.
the tea.
The chai. I think this is what I think. I think that Kristin is going to like it. I think Angela's going to like it. I think Laura's going to like it. I think Stephanie's going to like it. And I think that Ysenia probably will.
So are you saying,
like it? It's universally beloved, you think?
We're all
But-
gonna like
have we had like a unanimous top shelf read? We have.
2. We have, I think Black Girl Unlimited. If
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
not
Black Girl
mistaken,
Unlimited was
was.
fun.
Oh yeah, I wasn't there for that one.
Oh wait, I think Ysenia, you didn't love. No, maybe Stephanie. Who didn't love House on the Cerulean Sea?
Oh, I gave it 5 stars.
Laura, right?
Did
Me
everybody
and
love
Laura.
it? Laura.
I remember that live show. She was just loving it so much during our conversation. She at the end was like, "Yeah, I didn't like this at all."
I hated it.
I was like, oh, this is a great point. This is a great point. This is how I really feel, guys.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So,
Kept that
my
in mind.
prediction is that is possibly what happened with this one. I don't think everyone's gonna 100% love it, but it was very thought-provoking, in which I think we're gonna have a great conversation regardless.
Absolutely.
Like I don't think anybody outwardly hated it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm wrong. Sarah just made a face, so I don't know.
Did
She
I?
smirked.
Well, we talked about it.
You smirked.
She had a rough day, okay?
Yeah.
I did. I had a rough day.
Like we talked about it last time, is that like the great part of a book club is like even if we didn't like it or it wasn't a top shelf book, like we get to talk about it with each other, and that's awesome. So
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost more fun when we have varied opinions too.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think so.
Okay. Well, there are a few people who said hi, so let's talk about them. Hi, Bridget.
Hi.
And we have Emma joining us. Hello, Emma.
Hi, Emma. And Papaya?
Huh? Oh, Papaya?
Potentially.
Is that a cat?
It could be a cat of Emma's.
Oh, okay. Nice. All right. Well, let's hop into it then. The first thing I wanted to do was compare our characters to desserts. I thought that would be fun. Yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, Nora, if she were a dessert, what would she be? Cannoli, a fruitcake, macaron?
I think she is a tiramisu. She has quite a lot of layers.
Oh, clever.
I like it.
And I think of coffee, so.
My mind instantly went to like those molten lava cake, those chocolate lava cake things.
So good.
like
So
a hardened exterior, but once you break through that shell, like it's a nice surprise on the inside.
Nice.
That Nora molten lava cake.
I don't know why my mind instantly thought of that. I don't know.
No, I like it.
Oh, it's cute.
Yeah. Okay. What about Mrs. Elm? She's just like, I don't know, something warm and soft and sweet.
brownie,
Fresh
like
donut.
the gooey kind.
Yeah.
And something that everybody enjoys. Everybody could use a Mrs. Elm, you know?
Yeah. She's
For
like,
me,
she's
that's
like,
apple pie.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or
pie. Oh.
fresh chocolate chip cookies when you get home from school, and it's just like
Mhm.
comfort.
And like nostalgia.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was fun. I honestly think that as this book, what?
No, that was a
fun.
cool question.
Well, there's not really a lot of like huge characters in the story, honestly. I mean, it's Nora and like a few bad boyfriends and then a couple love interests that are insignificant. But it's mainly Nora's story and Mrs. Elm.
And we
I feel like Dan, what was his name? Dan, right? The sometimes husband, sometimes boyfriend. I feel like he would be something like something that you made that it looks like it's gonna be good, but then it's either like insanely dry or burnt on the bottom.
I think he's just like a first time bake. You know what I mean? Like when you bake something for the first time and it's just like, ugh.
Or this wasn't
like
what it's supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
Or sometimes like batter will taste okay if you eat it. And then you'll be like, ew, this is dry. I don't like this anymore.
That's perfect.
The more you mix it, the grosser it is.
I'm picturing something off of that show Nailed It to where like what you were supposed to get versus what you got.
Yeah.
I think that Ash, is that his name? Ash? He would be like something wholesome. Like I think apple pie, like just good.
Yeah.
I think of creme brulee.
A stale muffin.
Yeah. Truth. Okay. Well, there are so many opportunities for like deep, enriching discussion when we're talking about this book. And I've got some pretty good questions that I took mainly actually from Matt Haig's website. He has like lots of really detailed questions there. So I thought that we would start off with one that I thought was the most interesting, actually. And what do you think your version of the Midnight Library would be? And who would your guide be? So, like, would it be a library or would it be, I don't know. What do you think?
I actually thought of this before, and I want to make like a list of what my alternate lives could be, just because I think it would be really fun. Especially there's that part towards the end where she's just really like, they're not really describing her experience in the different lives, they're just listing them all off. Like I want to do that for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it would be awesome too to like think about, or like even to like make a list of your like biggest regrets. I feel like that would be really like, I don't know, therapeutic, also probably kind of painful.
I would not enjoy
right. Yeah.
No.
I feel like my space would be a library as well, and that's not very interesting. But we're all book people.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of something, you know, like a little bit different or a little bit more personal.
When I was thinking about it, I like the idea of it being like an old record store.
Oh, that's cool.
Just because I'm someone, I just love music, as you guys know, but yeah, just because that's a comforting place to me. I love going there, and you know. And I think a library is great too, though.
And what was the second part of the question? It was what, like,
who would
what
be your
would our in between place
person
be? And then who would be our person? I mean, like, my parents, but that's. Can it be your parents?
I'm sure it can.
The rule.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that as well, and I mean, there's so many people who have. If someone who, you know, like was kind to you in a moment where you really needed it is the idea, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
think mine would be like a library, but more grand. Like I think of like the Library of Alexandria, what we imagine, what we have like with the columns and kind of more like that kind of a library maybe. And then the person would probably be my grandma Marie. That's about it. But yeah, book people, I feel like a lot of us, library is our jam.
I don't know. I feel like mine would be like, this is so cheesy, but like the ballroom area in Beauty and the Beast, that's just like all the windows that like look out on the night sky. And then like maybe each one of my lives would be like a star that you can see like in the sky.
Ooh.
I changed my answer. My answer inspired me because like I'm playing with it. Can mine be the TARDIS? And then every time I go to a life, I open the door to that universe. Like, but like the TARDIS with like Eccleston and Tennis, that TARDIS interior. And then like every time you go to a life, you would just go out to it.
I love that.
You had a good idea, Kristin. That's so cool. Take our favorite like media.
Yeah.
When I was younger, the library in my city, they have a nice new fancy one now, but it used to have a children's section that only children could fit into. Like the ceiling was like 4 foot high or something. And that would be the particular library. Like I think it might have even been carpeted or something. It was kind of dingy in the basement. And only kids could fit inside of it. I mean, the upper floors had the adult books, but yeah.
Yeah, there's something.
Like the ceiling was like lower. That's cool.
How would you keep control of them? Like, what if a kid goes rogue? Like, how would you get in there?
there was kind of like steps you could go up, and then the children's section. So I think, I don't know. You would have just had to double down.
Crawl.
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 Yeah.
That's awesome. There's something so, I don't know, nostalgic and sweet about like childhood library. Like I have really fond memories of my childhood library too, the kids section. Okay, well, let's move on. What do you think of Nora's successful life? I guess when they're asking that question, they're asking about the one, I don't know. I mean, because would it be the one where she was the
successful lives?
Yeah, like the Olympic medal, or would you say
the
kid,
the
rock
star?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the rock star was more like the fame life, which I mean, it's also a success. But I think the words, because in the swimming one, she was like giving a talk on what it meant to be successful. So my mind immediately goes to the Olympic swimmer one.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
So I guess if we say that's her successful life, like if it were you, would you have wanted to stay in that version of her life?
No. To me, it felt very isolating. As like many public figures always say that once you get to the top, it can be very isolating. But that's when we get into the discussion of like what measures success, which is what like the whole book was kind of about. But me personally, no, I wouldn't have.
I don't know. I feel like it was sad because she got to like jump into that life, but she missed the good parts where she was like winning the Olympics and like all that adrenaline, and that would be such an exciting experience. But you don't get it. You just get like the afterwards part, so it's not as exciting, I would think.
Emma says, I was thinking it was a life where she was married to Ash with a daughter, which just shows, right? Our ideas of success are so subjective, right?
I think maybe that's why he put the question most near perfect life.
Yeah.
Like, because she describes it as being the one that she didn't want to leave, right?
At first,
I think of it sort of like the successful life was the Olympic like life. And then Laura had mentioned like the fame life as being the musician. That's how I think of it. And then the most perfect one for her, the closest to perfect and most difficult to leave, was the one with her daughter and Ash.
I also
guess,
thought the glaciology one was hard for her to leave because she liked that too.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
That was an enjoyable life. And then she met that bear and was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I guess I sort of think of like success meaning she had a goal and she went out and pursued that kind of like solely, and that was her sole focus. She went and did that. And I think the more perfect life, you know, like she adapted and she learned things and she changed her goal based on what she learned. And I think like that was why the swimming or the Olympic life was less happy, because like athletes, especially like in a sport like swimming, where you're only ever famous once every 4 years, and you know you hit your peak and you're in your early 20s and suddenly you've accomplished everything that you've been driving towards. And then so I think some people just don't and they would have been the same for Nora, like haven't defined themselves in any other way, so they don't have any other, like it's so tied to their identity, and suddenly, you know, they've accomplished what they're going to accomplish, and now what? So
Right.
Yeah.
So there were lots of lives that maybe we could have thought were the successful one when it comes to us, because success is so subjective. So if there were any life out of Nora's that you could pick, do you have one that was maybe your favorite life she lived?
I mean, it's kind of the obvious one, but the one with the daughter Molly and being a professor at Cambridge, that, oh my God, I've been to Cambridge and it's so beautiful, and like that would be my dream to live in. And she was like in an old Georgian house and she had a backyard and she was writing books all day. Definitely, absolutely, like the dream life for me.
What about, do you guys agree? Is that like the one you wanted?
I think probably of the ones that they showed.
Probably.
Out of all of them, yeah, but I might have a little bit of a hot take.
Say it.
Rockstar.
Mine, that's not mine.
And I didn't have the hot take until like we started this conversation. Does anybody here not think that any of the lives were truly successful?
Totally.
And I said, okay, perfect. So it's not that much of a hot take then, because like the way that I don't know if you agree with this, Sarah, but the way that I view success is doing something that you want to do on your own terms, your own dream. And I felt like every single life that we saw, yes, she was happy at some aspects, but the whole overarching theme was all of these lives she was doing for other people. Like for Ash, she settled down and did that a lot because that's what he wanted. The swimming was her dad. The being a rock star was her brother. Like, so on paper, she looks successful, but I don't think she ever truly felt successful.
And I think that was the whole point of it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think the whole point of her seeing all of these different scenarios was to realize there is no true perfect life, because even the perfect life that she saw wasn't even hers. Like she felt like she was living someone else's life. So the only one that she could truly come back to was her own, the one that she originally started. And that's why she had to even go to the library in the first place, right? And so that's why, that's why every single one of those options have a great expense to them.
Yeah, and I think the final the life with Molly and Ash that she did very much enjoy, like it was the perfect life, but there was this line where she said, I hadn't earned it, and I'm not really sure if earning it's the right way, but it wasn't as if that Nora had not suffered. Like she'd still gone through the death of her parents, like she'd still probably been through some ups and downs in her life, and she had made decisions and learned and arrived at this place. And then other Nora coming in, not having like made the choices that led to this perfect life. She just like couldn't be satisfied in it because it wasn't hers, and she hadn't earned it, or she hadn't built it for herself the way that the real Nora from that life had.
And I think it was necessary for her to come to terms with the Book of Regrets. How can you have regrets if you know what the outcomes would be and was never satisfied by any of the alternatives?
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of you have ever like had something happen and like you just thought if you could just go back to the way things used to be before, like everything would be better and you would be so much happier. Or like if someone that you loved was still like around, like your life would be better. And like you just think about how that future could have played out until it kind of can drive you crazy sometimes. And I think when we do that, that's kind of where we can like start to breed this like sadness, this despair. I think some of my most like mentally unhealthy moments have been whenever I thought I was so preoccupied with the past and like what could have been that I was not living in the moment, you know? And I feel like Nora, before she ends up in the Midnight Library, is kind of stuck in that same cycle too. Mm-hmm. So I guess I just feel like this book is kind of like, I mean, it's a lot of things, but I think it's also like an encouragement to embrace where you are in the moment, because most likely the reality that could have been is not the one that you would want anyways.
Yeah, it almost felt like weirdly therapeutic. Like as I was reading it, I was like, like, you're right. Let's do this, Nora. Like, let's leave the regrets in the past. Who cares?
I don't know much about the author, but I have a feeling that this may have been some sort of way to address prior like mental like certain events to do with mental health, perhaps, in his past, because it's sort of like, I don't want to say it's instructional because it's not, but it's sort of like demonstrative of how one can come to terms with their own life and depression.
An interesting thing about him too is that, like, Sara, you read it because I had you read it. The Humans is the other book that he wrote, and I love that book. And he focuses in that book a lot on like humans as a whole, like their condition, like from an alien's perspective, what do they make of these humans and stuff. But then I feel like in this one, he went more scope into like singular people, not humans, not humanity, not humans as a whole, but like humans, how we work and how our minds tend to work. So it's kind of interesting. Like it almost seems like those are the only two books from him that I've read, but like each one kind of tackles a broad scope of an issue. And then this one kind of narrowed it down a little more.
It did so too with a very like heavy philosophical like influence, because she did have a PhD in philosophy, and also did anyone else think of the Schrodinger's? Is that the right word?
Schrodinger's cat. Yeah.
Schrodinger's cat. As soon as you saw the cover.
Oh, I didn't when I saw the cover. I don't think I knew that much about it, but I had heard of it.
Just because it also said something like infinite books, infinite lives, or something like that. So I was like,
So let's talk about that actually, about kind of the science behind like multiple universes and things like that. Would you, I guess here, it says Haig describes Nora's experience as being their brain's way of translating the strange and multifarious reality of the universe. It talks about quantum physicists generally accept that alternate realities are a possibility. And in the book, he doesn't say possibility. He makes it seem like, without a doubt, there are alternate realities. So do you guys think that alternate realities are possible?
everything's possible.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so as well, but I don't think I understand the science enough or like physics enough to understand what that would mean or what it would look like. Like, I think this sort of sci-fi novel version where like there's so many books where you can jump between universes, like the Golden Compass books and this, and yeah, I can't like visualize it, and yeah, I don't like it. Was it in this book where they actually bring up, I'm gonna say it wrong, Schrodinger's cat? Did they
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember if it was this book or something else I'd been listening to, but that moment where everything simultaneously exists until you force it into like a form. Anyway.
Correct me if I'm wrong if anybody else has read this, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, the big one, the Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, I'm pretty sure it was in that one that he does a pretty understandable explanation of the science behind like why they think it's possible.
I think it is in that one.
Okay, it's in that one.
He's
Yeah,
done
because it was pretty like
books,
it made.
but I think
like,
it's that one.
Okay, yeah, because it wasn't like too complicated that like because I don't know physics.
Well, he's
like,
really good at making it understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was a good one where, because I felt the same way. I was like, I think anything's possible. Like, never say anything's impossible, but like to understand more like why scientists are like, no, this is plausible. I was like, wow. So that one might be one if you're interested in to check out. That was a good one.
What was it again?
Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, some of that still went over my head.
Pretty
some
short.
of that it's short. Some of it still went over my head because I don't know
Well,
as much. But yeah, exactly. But even for no knowledge, there's still so like a good amount of stuff you can take from that.
Right.
Yeah, it's wild. The universe is wild.
So speaking of like science and kind of fields like that, let's maybe move into philosophy. They talk a lot of, or they make a lot of references to philosophers, specifically Thoreau, right? Okay, so do you think that, I don't know, the philosophy in this book kind of enhanced the reading experience and made it better? What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was fine. I've never really been super into philosophy, but I know that people who are really love it and really enjoy it. So I'm sure that for a lot of people, that was a huge draw for the book and that they really enjoyed that. I could see it being a part that people really loved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you could make those connections, like if you studied it and you could recognize the theories of different theories of thought and stuff, I can, see that being satisfying. But I also don't know a whole lot about philosophy. A little bit.
Well, I wonder if the reason that he included Thoreau is because of his like focus on kind of, I don't know, being in the moment and truly living. Like the beginning of Walden is something like, I set out to, I don't know, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but something out to live. Like, does anyone else know how it goes?
And you sound right to me. You sound like you're on the right track.
I went to the
I've heard it deliberately. Before. Yeah.
Something about living deliberately or something.
Yeah, I do not remember.
I don't even know where I would find this.
Oh, actually, I know. James?
Oh, she's phoning a friend.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I don't know. I studied philosophy in college and like not for my degree, but like for classes. And yeah, I didn't study though like necessarily human condition philosophy. Like there's a lot of different types, and I studied more like critical thinking type of philosophy. So this was different, but I kind of felt like a lot of it was just quotes from people, not so much like,
A lot of it was quotes.
Yeah, like quotes is what he did a lot.
I found it. And I think that
I found it.
Okay. Do you want to read it, Ysenia?
Oh, I just Googled it. So if you have it in the book,
I just Googled too.
I Googled it too.
Okay.
But I think it's so perfect for this book. It says, I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I just feel like that is almost like a summation of the Midnight Library, because the whole issue with Nora's life is that, well, one, there's no love in it, but two, she's not really living. Like, I don't know.
What's the first line of David Thoreau?
Sorry, I'm listening to Laura.
Yeah, me too.
I went-
Sorry.
Is it? Okay.
Wow, he knows.
Oh,
it.
he knows it.
Yeah.
You got it?
I agree with that statement as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because I like Thoreau and I have kind of a knowledge that for me it was a little bit more impactful, I think. So Laura, what was that about?
I just got my boyfriend to quote it because I knew he had it memorized. So
That was impressive.
You guys,
we're very impressed.
could you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard it a little bit.
Whoops.
That's okay.
Sorry. I thought I took my headphones off so you couldn't hear. Sorry.
No,
No,
we're
no,
we were
it
all
was-
impressed.
It was,
We were like, he
it was
knew.
impressive. We all had to Google.
Yeah.
But I agree also with what Bridget said. I really felt like a hankering to read Walden after I finished the book, and I read it in college.
I'm gonna plug one of the best shows ever, The Good Place. Even
my
my
God, I love that
philosophy,
show.
Okay.
even my philosophy professors, and they're like nerds for philosophy. They're philosophy professors. They were like, we all watch this show together. Because I asked her, I was like, do you guys watch The Good Place? Because like Chidi is everything, and it's all about like philosophy. And she was like, oh yeah, we all watch it, and it's actually really accurate and stuff like that. So The Good Place.
I watched the
I
first
second that.
season. I didn't. The second season wasn't out when I watched the first one, and so I just never continued. But I liked the first one; it was funny.
I watched the first episode.
Keep
Yeah.
going. You got to see the whole like
Okay.
the amounts of
I'll
twists
add it
and
to my
turns
list.
that this show
Oh, I'm
takes,
sorry.
and it's very deliberate because they stopped at what I think 3 or 4 seasons, but deliberately, like they were like, no, we know where we want this story to go. We're not just gonna like keep making things because it's popular, and we know what kinds of things we want to address, and so like it delves in a lot of topics about life and humanity, and philosophy is a big thing, and like what's right, what's wrong, good, bad. It like I'm gonna do a chef's kiss. So good.
Ooh, chef's kiss
Yes,
material.
yes, that'll be my chef's kiss for the episode.
Okay. I'm adding it to my list so I don't forget.
So I guess going off of that, I brought that up because I think that Thoreau in his philosophy talks about the importance of simple things. And a line that Haig repeats a lot in the book is never underestimate the big importance of small things. And so what do you guys think about that message?
I sort of think that it's not always bad to have regrets, but she was kind of regretting the wrong thing. Like she was always regretting she was focusing on her own accomplishments and regrets related to, the work she was able to do, when really like when she stepped back and if she had focused more on, the relationships that she had, maybe she would have seen things differently. Because I think if you're to regret something, like don't regret not becoming an Olympian, but like I think it is still good to regret being unkind or to regret like being impatient with someone that you should have been more patient with, you know? I just think that those are like the things that are worth regretting, where the big things aren't really as important as we make them out to be.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of her regrets too centered around other people. Like she regretted not being a rock star because of her brother. She regretted not being swimming because of her dad. And so her regrets were centered around other people, like Ysenia said earlier. And so I think that too kind of focuses on like, why are you regretting certain things? Like, are you regretting it because you actually wanted to be an Olympian or you wanted to be a rock star? Or are you regretting it because that choice affected your relationship with somebody else? And you are actually regretting the like poor turn that relationship took, not regretting what you actually chose to do.
Yeah, it was like she was getting them mixed up in her head. Yeah. Like she was thinking, regretting not being Olympian, when really she regretted not having a better relationship with her father, or not having been able to work that out.
Yeah. And also sometimes we can just be at a place in our life where we're so misguided that we want things that are not what we actually would want. Like we want things that are bad for us.
Or we also want things that are not possible. Like for me, it was when she was bringing up the fact that no matter what, her parents are not going to be able to love her the way that like is appropriate, because they both had their own issues before they had her. And I was like, yeah, it's like you want things that are kind of not always possible either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also I thought it was sometimes she would ask for books in the library that she couldn't have because she can only control her own decisions, and what she was asking for was like related to the decision that someone else had made, if that makes sense. Yeah. So like I always think that's an important thing to keep in mind, that you can only control so much, you know?
They also acknowledge something in the book too, which is that she could pick her choice. Like she could choose something. She could not change the outcome. Like she could change her choice, but whether or not it was a good outcome, she had no control over that.
Like Voltaire. The Kid Cat.
Yeah, that was so sad.
That was sad.
I know. I was like, we were so excited about this cat, and it dies in the 3rd chapter.
I know.
I was like, what the heck?
You guys are like, I was so sad. I was pissed.
Well, I had not cried as hard as I did like in a long time whenever she goes back and tries to be with Voltaire again, and then he's still dead. And like
I was like, we got this. I was like, wait, come on. Not again.
Nope. Not happening.
And then the fact though that like it wasn't her fault. Like, you know, like she realized she was a good pet owner.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on something that I think is huge, and that quote when it says never underestimate the big importance of small things. I'm just thinking about how, you know, Nora wanted to die because she thought that she lived a life that provided nothing to the world, and that she did nothing that mattered, and that she had nothing like worthwhile in her life. And yet actually she did. Like, I mean, there are a few people who in her root life, she had a tremendous impact on their own lives. Mm-hmm. And her not being there caused like some big impacts in their life. Do you guys want to talk about those people?
Yeah, it was kind of like, does anyone enjoy It's a Wonderful Life, the Christmas movie?
I hate that movie.
I've never seen it.
But it was kind of the same idea, like she was going and seeing what
I'm not getting over this for a long time, Stephanie.
But she was going back and seeing like what her root life would have been like had she not been there, I guess, kind of. And there was the boy she taught piano to, who was sort of going off the rails because he hadn't had music there in the moment where he needed it, and it like but I also think that in It's a Wonderful Life and in this there's always, you know, really big consequences, but I think sometimes like sometimes it is true that, you know, what we do doesn't make a big impact or a big change, but it's more like, you know, a sum of little things. Oh, who's that?
Oh, hello.
He wanted to be a part of the conversation.
Oh, my goodness.
This is Thumper, like the rabbit in Bambi. Okay, you have to be good. You have to be good.
Oh my goodness. Is he a puppy? He looks
No.
very puppyish.
But he's my puppy forever. No, he's 6.
No.
Yeah, so.
Well, welcome to the Top Shelf Society, Thumper.
Yeah. Are you happy? You got attention. Okay. Sorry. You stole the show. You're happy?
There was the boy who she taught piano to. What else was there that changed?
The neighbor.
The neighbor.
And also Mrs. Elm in real life didn't die alone.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So yeah, I think that's like a reminder, I guess, that the lives that we live can have a big, valuable impact too, without us even realizing it. I don't know. Okay.
Oh, there's a comment from Emma. She didn't know it was possible to hate It's a Wonderful Life.
I didn't realize this was such an unpopular opinion until I said that, and then it was just like, oh, I can't take it back now.
That's the hot take of the chat today.
Yes.
Yes. No. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so what about this quote? Because Matt Haig repeats it a lot too. He says, the only way to learn is to live. How is that important to the story?
I think like something that I find kind of comforting, or a quote that I like to like come back to, is that saying that's like, you did the best you can with what you had and what you knew at the time. And I think that's so easy to forget, because we live and we learn things, and then we look back and, oh, why did I make that decision? We forget like that we only had so much information in that moment. And even the decisions that Nora was regretting, for example, leaving Dan, had she trusted her own judgment, because she did see something in him that, you know, led her to leave him. But then she kept regretting it and sort of doubting her decision. And then as it turned out, she was right to have left him. And there was probably a reason that she made that decision. And she did make the best decision with what she knew, you know, but she forgot that.
Oh, he was the worst.
He was just so annoying. Like, he was just rude and a jerk and manipulative. I'm like, wow.
Didn't he need like a restraining order? Ew.
In one life, yeah.
Oh.
In one of the lives.
And then the other life, they were married and he was having an affair.
He was like, oh, I just cheated on you once. Okay, fine, twice. I mean, get over it. And I'm like,
Oh,
right?
I was like,
you still want to keep trying for a baby? Oh, yeah, sure. Let's have a baby. Gross.
Yeah,
I
and that was in the
know.
same conversation. I don't understand. Like, I know. Boys are the
Insane.
worst.
Insane. I saw that and I
Unbelievable.
was so angry.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. I think what you were talking about, Kristin, about having to live it and is the way to learn. I think that really came into play with, she went to a library, so she could have just read about her other lives. But Mrs. Elm was like, no, you have to go in and live these different lives in order to truly experience it, truly know how you would feel in that life. Because I mean, if she just read about the perfect life, she might not know how she would actually feel in that situation. And it's like a lot of it is like living there, knowing what you feel about it to really learn what you want. Because sometimes on paper something sounds amazing, but then once you have it, it doesn't really fulfill like your desires and stuff. So.
Right, and that's probably a good like jumping point into talking about the end of the book, because I mean, Nora has to make a decision. The library is literally crumbling around her. Maybe you guys can talk about like the decision that Nora makes when she's in the library, like what she writes in the book.
Well, just for starters, I loved the symbolism of just that whole scene of needing to write your own story and live your own life. But what I'm trying to understand the question so I don't like go off on my own tangent like I usually do.
Oh no, you can go off on a tangent. Tangents are fun.
What was the question again? Oh my God,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's okay.
Pepper's like running around.
I don't even know. I think I asked, what do you guys think about the ending and how when she's in the library, what she writes in the book, like why what she writes in the book is important.
Was that like her letter at the end?
Or wasn't it like I choose to live, or I
I'm alive. I want to live.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull it up so I don't like misquote the order of what she wrote. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, because she did try different things that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I got it here if you want me to tell you.
Is that the part that's I have learned, written by a nobody who has been everybody?
No.
Oh wait, I can't see where my
I'm
camera
so
is.
off right now.
I'm alive. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
I am alive.
I see. Yeah, she wrote Nora wanted to live, and then she wrote Nora decided to live. Nora was ready to live, and then as Angela said, she just wrote I am alive, and then she pulled through out of the situation she was in with everything crumbling down.
Why do you think it was only that one sentence that took her back to life and not any of the others?
I took it as when you look at the difference of what she literally wrote down, the first 3 statements, she was talking about herself in the third person as if it was still somebody else's story. And then she took it to the first person and really reclaimed her life that she wanted to live. So that's how I took it. But I don't know if somebody took it differently.
I thought a similar thing, and then added to that, there's almost like I am alive. There's almost like kind of like, except especially it following the other sentence, I want to be alive. It's sort of, there's like a little bit of gratitude, or like kind of you're valuing your existence, or you're sort of, you like have a new understanding for the like amazement of being alive or whatever.
Yeah.
And am is like a verb of being, whereas want is like, I mean, it's not quite as powerful of an action to want something as it is to actually be something and claim that thing. And I think for someone like Nora, who was struggling with the idea of being alive, who didn't want to be alive, to like claim life was a very powerful action, I guess, for her.
Mm-hmm.
I did anyone else see the ending coming? Like from the beginning, it did not ruin the book at all for me. Like I didn't mind this, but I knew she was going to end up back in her root life from when,
100%.
I didn't at first. I this is crazy. I thought she was going to stay in the one where she was a glaciologist. I don't know why, but I guess because I would have stayed in that one.
That bear would have wanted her to.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it coming.
Sometimes
good,
it's nice. Yeah, sometimes it's nice to know where it's going.
Yeah.
Because
You know,
you
some
still
people
can't figure
were-
out how it's going to get there.
Mhm.
I read one person say that like, and I felt the same way, admittedly, when I read it about like when it seemed like she was going to stay in the life with Ash and Molly. I was like, is it really going to take a guy to like make it be her perfect life? Like, I don't know. I just like, because she went from so many giant things, and I sometimes you read that in books where it takes like a love to make your life mean anything, and I'm like, you shouldn't need somebody else for your life to mean something, like, but they didn't go there, so I was like,
And
okay,
yeah, and going off of that too, a lot of it is, especially in adult books, a lot of it is not only a love but a child that
yes,
makes you happy.
yeah,
And I was like, no, let's not do that. No, you don't have to.
yes,
You don't have
okay,
to.
cool.
Like,
Yeah, I was like, oh, because she was like, okay, I got a husband, I've got a daughter, we got a dog, and I'm like, okay, I guess. But then they didn't, so I was like, okay, cool.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
I have a
I was
question,
worried about
though.
the same thing.
Like, is this okay? So she goes and she lives in all of these different versions of her life. Okay. What happens to that life after she pieces out?
Oh, then
Oh.
she said the other person goes back in.
What?
Yeah.
And they like vaguely
I
can't
know they
remember
said
stuff.
that, but I don't buy it.
yeah, kind of the same.
I
How
don't
like
really
when
buy this.
yeah,
Like, what's gonna happen to Molly?
Her mom will just come right
Yeah.
back.
And what about the interaction that she's had with Nora?
Well, I think that she remembers
it still
it.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still all happened. It's just not like
So she
her-
remembers
it's like
it,
different
but they just
consciousness
keep going on.
Yeah,
No,
that's what Hugo was talking to her about.
no, I am not.
it-
I am not about that.
It was explained kind of like if you were mid-sentence and then left, you'd be like, oh, I just lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? Kind of thing. But
Which
yeah.
happened to you, Ysenia, earlier.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I glitch sometimes. I don't know. I'm very
Maybe there was a slider.
walk into a room and forget why I'm there. Well, I hope my slider said something interesting.
I want to bring up a point that Bridget said. I feel like if she had picked any other life besides the root life, she would have missed the point. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's true. I feel like if there's any, I mean, and there's so many lessons here, but maybe the main one is that, like, if given any other choice, the life that would feel the best ultimately is the one that you have lived. And that's so encouraging.
And also, if you don't kind of learn to want to live in whatever you are given, you're always going to come, like, in everyone's life, everyone faces like really dark times in their lives. So no matter which life she were put in, she would always come to a place like that again, you know? And if she didn't learn to sort of like want to live in whichever situation she had to live in, it wouldn't have made any difference because she always would have come back to that place at some point in every one of her lives, is my pessimistic, I guess, take on it.
No, I think that's fair. She even pointed out that in most of her lives, she had anxiety or depression. She was on pills or seeing therapists or stuff. In even lives that she felt were amazing and had it all, right? She still had those things because it's a chemical in the brain. You know, it's not something that a perfect life is going to necessarily change. It may help you cope with it better, but it's not going to change the way your brain works. So
that, going off of that was the one issue that I had with the novel, was I kind of felt as though at least in the beginning few lives that she tried out that we actually got to see, like she based a lot of her success on whether or not she was on antidepressants. And I didn't like that.
I had a problem with
No.
that too. I was going to say
You
that
guys
too.
didn't like that either.
Well, I don't think we were
No.
supposed to like it. I think that was kind of the point that he put it in there, is like, you can't base it on this. This isn't gonna make you like successful or not. Yeah, I think he did it on purpose so we wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Because on the flip side, like in the lives where she was on antidepressants, at least that indicates that she had identified, that she was having mental health problems and that she had sought help for that and had a diagnosis and, was like working towards a solution. So that on one hand, that like, should have been almost a positive indicator of that life.
Yeah.
That's not the impression that I got at all. I got the impression of the alternative. Like, even her last life with Ash and Molly that she wanted to stay in, I could be remembering wrong, but I thought that she looked through the drawers and she didn't have any antidepressants. And she was like, oh, I must be happy in this life. And like, it seemed like in the beginning, she kept using like therapy or medication as like an indicator that it wasn't a good life. I don't know. I guess I read it differently than you guys. And and that bothered me because I was like, antidepressants are not, an indicator of if your life is happy or good enough. Like you were saying, Stephanie, like you need it.
Yeah, no, I think that's what Ysenia, I think that's what you were saying or whoever brought this up. I think that's what you were saying as well. Right?
Yeah.
I guess to add to that, do you think that patients fully accept, seeking therapy because perhaps others feel that that is a measure of success, whether or not they are on an antidepressant? Because I sure know quite a lot of patients that felt like they were failing if they were doing counseling or on SSRIs or some sort of therapy, when actually it's like, no, that means not only that you're like, that you can be like successful, but like you're like taking your health into your own hands, you're acknowledging that there is an issue. And one of the best ways to get through that sort of period of time is to be on counseling or to be on antidepressants or to have therapeutic intervention in some sort of capacity. I know that not only is true for mental health disorders, but like high blood pressure, diabetes, etc. Yeah.
So you're saying that you don't think it was Matt Haig's intention to convey it to the audience, but rather that it was his intention to show that that's how Nora thinks, potentially? Or is that the opposite of what you're saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know what his intention was, but I think that perhaps he wanted to have a commentary on that aspect.
Because a lot of people do think that way. Yeah.
So many people do.
What's ironic, though, is that I don't think, I think whenever I chose to seek therapy and get antidepressants, I think that was whenever I was starting become healthier. This is the fact that I was ready to make that choice and get help. Like I was somehow getting better, even without them, because I made that choice to help myself. Whereas before I was still going through tons of stuff, but I was too stuck in it to even imagine getting help. And my therapist said the same thing. She said, usually once the time, people get to me and they get help, if they're seeking me like their self, it's because they're already on the right track,
Absolutely.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, for sure. Yeah, this is a smart woman.
Yeah. I just feel that culturally and in society that there is this sort of expectation for people to be perfect flawlessly without any help with anything at all. For instance, even weight, for instance. People should be skinny, but they shouldn't be dieting, and in fact should brag if they're eating hamburgers and etc. Like, we should just strive for this perfection while appearing as if we don't need anything when we actually perhaps do, and especially when with something as important as your own health, like your own mental health, or like diabetes, hypertension, like high blood pressure, like just so many different so many different issues. And it's actually, like, I'm sure Stephanie, you'll agree that it can be very difficult to work with patients, and in some cultures, any sort of like medical intervention is like straight up, like, you do not acknowledge that you have a problem to your family. And in fact, there are some cultures too where actually all of the medical knowledge about certain issues is not actually given to the patient, it's given to the family instead. So yeah, I think that it is really important to sort of at least have some sort of commentary about the importance of incorporating health. And like Kristin said, that is actually a huge step, an initial step usually into getting better.
Yeah.
It should be celebrated.
Yeah. I guess that's why I struggled, is because I don't feel like that was addressed. Like, they did bring up the issues with therapy and medication, but I don't feel like it was addressed that it is a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how sometimes a character might be sexist, but then the author like addresses why that's wrong or something like that. Like, I don't know. I almost wonder, because like some people might have mental health struggles reading this, and they might perceive those as accurate. Like, oh yeah, Nora's lives were successful when she didn't need it, or things like that, you know? And I just wish it might have been, because like there were so many things that was addressed. This was not just like a one moral book. There was tons of quotes and tons of life lessons and stuff. And I feel like that was, while he already has like 50 things, throw in one more and be like, hey, but the medication and the therapy is a good thing. It doesn't mean that she's not happy or not successful, I guess.
For me, the sort of approach he was taking was more of a counseling approach, like sort of a meditation, mindfulness sort of approach about living in the now and not being stuck in past lives.
Yeah.
I like Alan's point there, where it's extremely difficult to get this mental health stuff. Like, if you don't have insurance, you're never going to be able to pay for a therapist. They're like $100 an hour. I mean, what can you pay for $100 an hour? That's insane, right? And so, like, I feel like if people are looking at their lives and they're making less, or they make too much to be on Medicaid, but they make too little to afford a therapist, like, your mental health isn't something that they're going to ever cover, you know, like emergency medical things, your physical stuff, then like, yeah, emergency stuff will cover it, but they're never going to consider like your mental health an emergency unless it incorporates a physical aspect.
And I don't think that this is the time for the conversation, but there are some differences between Canada and the US.
I was going to say, yeah, I was going
to say it is covered.
That's because you have like the universal.
What is covered and what isn't, and that sort of thing. And I really feel for that.
Yeah.
But it's still underfunded here, and there's huge wait lists to get counseling.
Yeah, there's definitely work to be done everywhere. Yeah.
Even with my insurance, like copay is still, it's $40 like to see a therapist,
that's a high copay, actually. Yeah. I think my husband's, I guess I shouldn't say this on here, but like someone I know goes to therapy and theirs is 20. So it's like half of that even.
Yeah. So it like varies so much. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
going back, Angela, I do agree with you. It just felt like, so I was, I don't know if you guys do this too. I'm sure you do. Like, after I finish a book, as I'm sitting down to write my review, I'll read other people's reviews, and I'll even read reviews of people who may not agree with me. And I feel like you said, there have been countless conversations happened in this novel on countless important, deep topics. but this one in particular just felt a little half-baked to me. Like I wish that we would have gotten like not it completely spelled out, but like I wish the stigma of it was addressed a little bit more. Maybe somebody else had a differing point of view than Nora did. But that was like the only issue I had with it. But I did enjoy the commentary that it brought on, even though I didn't. A lot of like he was blunt at times, and that's what I put in my review too. That like I wouldn't recommend this to someone who maybe doesn't think that they can handle the bluntness of these conversations. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, another thing to bring up about that, because I do think I saw this in a review from someone who, I don't remember if they study mental health or if they're a mental health professional or whatnot, but like the idea of basing this entire thing around suicide and the fact that if you make that choice, that it's almost saying like, if you go by what this book happens, like she gets time to go through all these things and decide and have these deep revelations, and then she can just decide to now be alive. And that kind of was a bit, I don't even think it was necessary. Like I was thinking about it and I'm like, I feel like he could have told the same story, but without basing it all around suicide, because she could have just randomly walked up to a library that only she sees and she gets to go in, and maybe it appears because she's having these deep regrets and these deep thoughts or something like that. Like
a rabbit hole.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like there could have been a different way to do. I don't know. I just and this isn't my thought. This was this profession or someone who studies this thought, is like maybe that might not have been the best impression to give people who are struggling with mental health and suicide, is that like, oh yeah, you know, like you might, it's just like this, how did they phrase it? It was almost like a, you know, this change of life thing, and now you can come out of it and make it, you know, it's like you, that's, yikes.
Isn't the idea that it's like a decision that you're making as opposed to it's an imbalance of chemicals and like actually a disorder, like, you know, a health problem that you're having, instead of it's just the way you're looking at things, or it's just, you know, that you decided, now you decide you didn't want to live, now you can decide you want to live, when really
that happened a lot. Yeah,
like it's an illness that you're dealing with, and it's an imbalance of chemicals in your brain, and it's we don't really even understand the physiology of it. But yeah, I see what you mean, and I also thought about that when I was reading, how like, yeah, how that's quite so right, I guess.
I have one more thing to say, but I just have to tell you what I feel about the book then to talk about it.
Well, we should jump into that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. Laura, what were you going to say then?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to leave because I'm having connection problems and stuff, so I'm not really hearing all of it. So I'm gonna head out, and I also I don't mind. I'll watch the rest of your conversation. So can I just give my
Yeah.
thing, and then it's top shelf for me. I really, really liked it.
Oh,
like Sara liking topics. So and even like, I don't know, just not even not based on, like, sometimes I'll like a book, I'll say, oh, you know, I liked how it did this, and it has such literary value or whatever. This was just like, no, I really enjoyed every moment that I was reading it, and that based on just like the pleasure element, or like my interest in it. I really enjoyed it. I also just like feel like I am Nora, because my name is Laura and she was Nora. Coincidence? I'm not so sure. And I used to be a competitive swimmer as well, so I thought that was interesting. And then I've also, like, I think everybody has, but I've just gone through that being overly focused on regrets and on the past. And I've never been like at a low point to the point that Nora was, but I've definitely been in places where I'm constantly thinking back to opportunities that I had even in childhood and why didn't I do that. And like that's something that I just kind of recently got over. So reading this was like, yes, this is me. Oh my goodness. So anyway, with that, I'm going to leave and I'll watch your opinion. So I'm excited to watch the rest of it.
Bye, Laura.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right, let's do it. Is this a top shelf read? Should I go first or?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, yes, this was a top shelf read for me.
Ooh, 2 for 2.
I know. It just was a book that like I feel like put into words like something like deep and like wordless in me, you know, like a book that really understood a part of me, and it just felt like mine. Like and so I think because of how much I could relate to it and just how enjoyable it was, and more than that, because it truly felt like it put to words something I didn't know how to say. And whenever I read it, I felt like it made me a better person. Almost like it helped me deal with some of my own regrets from my own life. And I just think when a book can really make that lasting impact that makes your life kind of better, I think that makes it top shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah.
I don't want to go yet.
Go.
I'll go then.
You're
Yeah,
gonna roast it.
Go ahead.
All right. So like, yeah, this has so many lessons and quotes, and like I feel like some people could read this book and it would be life changing. Like I totally can see that. So saying this feels like kicking a puppy, but I didn't like it. I didn't really it took a long time for me to figure out how to put into words what I did not like about it, but I had more problems that's why I was gonna say, like, I had a couple of other issues with how certain things were portrayed, which I can get into after if you want, but like I guess another thing is that like I can't believe this is the same person who wrote The Humans. Like it feels like a totally different book, because like the main thing in The Humans was his wife and son, and you really get to like know their emotions and who they are as people and all these details about them. And I felt like this was all very surface level, and quite frankly, I didn't care about Nora. Like I was like, I didn't feel like real people. And like, I don't know. The thing that I was gonna say that I also had a problem with was when she chose this life and she came back, and all of the things in the beginning that had led to her to want to take her own life, they all magically were like, oh no, he wasn't actually mad at you. Oh, she just didn't text you back because she wanted to have a longer conversation with you. Oh, these people, he is going to take piano lessons. And then there was like a line saying that like, oh, if you're patient, like these things can like work themselves out. And that's not real most of the time. Like in real life, things don't just like always work out. Depression and wanting to take your life can be a real thing that like feels like it's your only option, and it's not always just like, oh, be patient and it'll all come like magic. Like you have to do work. And I'm glad that it did mention like, okay, she was gonna like do things she wanted, like volunteer, and that did take her actively doing things. But I feel like all of the things that led to her to take her life, it just magically was fine if she just would have waited another day. And I don't know, that was hard for me to like, and a bunch of the other things we were talking about suicide and about how medications were addressed, like different things. It felt like, do you know the difference between being, I mean, I know you guys do, but like the difference between being depressed and having depression? It felt like he was writing this about someone who's depressed, not who like has depression. And like, this is a real thing, that it's not just like, oh, think differently and your life is going to get better. That's not always how it works. And as a side note, like what Sara was talking about the other time about how you're like, I don't buy this. I also could not stand the fact that she had no memory of the lives that she slipped into.
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't
me too.
buy
was
that
my
for a
least favorite thing
second. That made no sense. I was like,
I hated it.
how? Thank
Hated
you.
it.
I hated it. I was like, how does this make any sense? Why wouldn't you just remember some of these things?
Yeah.
And you're like, and people are just like, oh yeah, it's totally fine that you don't even know where you live or like your brother's dead or any of this stuff. I'm like, this doesn't, and like, especially the glaciology thing, I'm like, there's no way you could even have a conversation with someone without confessing that you know nothing. And then if you decided to like stay in that life, what would you have to like redo your PhD? Like how would you even...
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just like, and like I said, I feel like I'm saying like I hate puppies and kittens and rainbows and ice cream because this book is so sweet and precious, and I know it's so meaningful to so many people, and I don't like I tabbed a bunch of good quotes, and I'm gonna keep the book because sometimes I might want to go look at those quotes again, and they do help you, and it is important. So I'm not saying like this is a book that can mean a lot to people. I'm not saying it's not a good book. I didn't like it. Like I just personally didn't like it. Sorry,
I just didn't like the execution as much.
Sorry,
like in theory.
Yeah, in theory, it was like I said, like there could have been minor changes to different things, like how he did the like multiverse situation, like the mental health issue. Like there could have been ways that things could have been done differently that it would have been like cool. But for me personally, there was a lot in the execution that I was just like not a fan. So.
Stephanie?
You're just like awkward silence. I'm like, okay,
No.
I'm gonna hide now.
No.
I feel like
Never feel like your opinions are not valid because they are 100%.
But I didn't
valid.
like. I almost didn't even want to come on the live because I don't like being negative. I don't like being negative, especially to something that could mean so much, because there are a lot of profound quotes and realizations. Like I said, there's like 50 of them. There's so many things he addresses, and there's so many things like. And I don't think that Matt Haig had bad intentions when he wrote it. Like it's not like he's like, yeah, he wasn't like racist or sexist. Like, you know, people like those deserve to be trash. But like I feel bad because I don't know that he had bad intentions. So I don't like, and I know it means a lot to people. So I was just like, I don't want to talk about bad things.
It's not negativity when it's art. It's like, it's criticism. It's being critical. And I think critical lenses help us like get more knowledge and really appreciate things. So
I've heard people trash on my favorite books, and I do not care. They're still my favorite books, and that is fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah. No, I actually feel like I agree with a lot of what Angela said. I also didn't think it was the top shelf read. I absolutely hated when she'd go into the lives and remember nothing. I was like, this is the stupidest thing. And so it like pulled me out of the story so bad. I felt like it was very predictable. Like the whole thing, I could like predict a ton. The mental
like how
health-
in every one there was like something that happened. Yeah. It was like, do you remember that thing in Portugal? Oh, and they never explained what happened. They were like,
and I was like, why Portugal? Okay, why Portugal? Why is this happening in Portugal? But I did kind of like that she like brought up like Portuguese, like he brought up Portuguese a lot and Spanish a lot, which I wasn't expecting. Portugal, Brazil, like Mexico, like I was like, what?
Well, when they were in the concert and they were in like Peru or Brazil or Sao Paulo, everyone spoke English and like talked like yes, queen and all that stuff, and I was like, you're not in.
Yeah,
but also Brazilians are very good with their English, but I was just a little bit like, I don't know about this.
I don't know. I feel like it's not super unrealistic because when big famous bands go there, like people memorize their songs, they know what they're saying. Like, and if you're gonna do a podcast with them, you're gonna speak English because they're not gonna speak your language. So like, yeah, the majority of people wouldn't have, but the people that they are having her, a very famous person, interact with, I'm sure would.
Did you notice it was the fan. The verb conjugation like kind of off for some of those conversations too. I was like, is this Spanish? Yeah, he did.
I don't
And I
know
was like-
Spanish. So I don't know.
I remember he did a couple of times because I was like, oh, he doesn't think Brazilians know how to speak like proper English, or like I saw it a couple of times.
Maybe it's possible. I guess I just kind of read it correctly in my head and just went on with it.
Same.
I have a minor obsession with things, most things.
Most things.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Stephanie. I was just talking about too what you were saying, like how it was always like, oh, do you remember what happened in this place? But then they never explained what happened or anything. It was just like every time we're like, okay.
Yeah. So that part took me out of the story a ton. I agree a lot with what Emma said here, where she felt like her extreme anxiety led to her depressive episodes based on like a lot of her anxiety issues. Because I feel like that's kind of how mine works. And so I could relate to that a little bit better. But I agree, if you like had a different type of depression, like there's so many different types, like you might not be able to relate, and so you might see it differently and be like, oh well, that's how I should be, when in reality it's different. So like I feel like my depressive episodes come a lot with my anxiety and my like panic attacks and anxiety attacks and different like situational things that are affecting that. So I could like see that maybe a little bit. I did love the like commentary on regrets, though. I feel like that was my favorite part of this book, is talking about regrets and how like you may regret these things, but like the life that you have made for yourself is the one that you're like meant for, and going forward you can make whatever choices you want, but you can't regret your past decisions. Like you can, like Laura said, like you can regret if like you were someone, like regret that like moves you on, but not stuff that like holds you in place and doesn't let you progress. So I liked that aspect a ton, but I think there's just too much about it that bugged me or pulled me out of the story. And also I agree with Angela, I didn't really care about Nora as a character. Like she was fine, I was following her for the story, but I didn't feel any attachment to her really. So
I forgot her name every chapter. Every chapter. Really? And then someone said Nora, and I was like, oh yeah, that's who we're talking about.
Like I liked her cat the best, and I feel like that's probably not a feeling I should have. So.
What is it with these books and like having a cat, but not like having a cat?
Having a cat.
The cat always dies. Like, or is just kind of like a side, and I'm just like, we need a cat book.
Write it, Sarah.
Wait,
write our book.
Where's the cat book?
Write it.
It's like the traveling cat or some.
I know what you're talking about. It's the best.
You've already read it. Okay.
I've already read it. I recommended it. Like everyone should get it. Even if you don't like cats, just get it.
I hear that it just crushes you. Is this true? Like, does it just like
I was
out your heart?
Okay,
yeah.
No thanks. Oh my God.
I was destroyed. But you know, sometimes it's good to have a book that will like just destroy you emotionally, you know?
Said no
one. It's like my
ever.
favorite type of book. Anyway.
No, yeah. I like, yeah.
I clearly cannot type.
And then she switched to dogs. I was like, wow, traitor.
Right? I was like, Voltaire would be offended.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, do you want to go?
I'm scared.
I'm scared too.
Of what?
I just think that everyone's going to end up hating this book.
You didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it. If I hated it, I would give it 1 or 2. I'm thinking like 2.5, maybe 3. So I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like 2, like, because out of 5 stars, 2.5 would be I half liked it.
Qualities, yeah.
Yeah. If it's like terrible, it would be like more of a 1 or a 2, but like half out of 5 is not bad.
Okay.
You really want me to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Okay. I'm just going to preface this. Okay. I think that Kristin.
Just say it. Just say it.
I'm glad Laura's gone.
Rip my heart out. Rip my heart out.
I think that this book has good things. I think that this book can be a very powerful book. Like if you, I think that many people can relate to this book. And for me to say anything about, like, this book won the Goodreads Fiction Award, okay? Of 20.
Wow.
How many people are on Goodreads, okay? So Matt Haig, he is doing well. He is successful. So many people benefited from this book. If you benefited from this book, I think that is great. I did not. And I don't know, like, how real can I be here? Because
Go all the way.
You can be real. Be real.
Say your opinions.
this book was a tedious read for me. Oh my goodness. When I started it and I saw what was happening, I liked the 24-hour countdown to what was happening and sort of like how it revealed how she came to the decision to finally take her whole life. When she got to the point where she did, I was like, she's in straight up hell now, because now instead of letting her rest in peace, she has to go and live through all of the like potential outcomes, and she does not want any of that. Eventually, she comes to a point where she sort of accepts the process, and you know, she sees the different lives and everything, and she starts to find lives that resonate with her more, that are becoming more similar to her perfect life, the more that she examines and reflects and that sort of thing. But it was a very, very tedious read for me. I did not think the execution of any of her lives were, you know, like I didn't really care for them. I didn't find them enjoyable. I didn't find them interesting. I thought that the commentary on philosophy was like awesome. And again, I think that this has the power to be like really meaningful and important. But I'm like old guys, like this. I've come to these conclusions.
Why me too?
The first, when I read this, I was like, I know exactly what is going down with this book, and now I have now I'm going to read it, and now I'm going to see it play out, and it's going to be like nails on a chalkboard, and that's how it felt for a lot of it. That being said, coming near the end to it, I actually felt differently than a lot of people here. When she got to the point where she was in her near perfect life, that really affected me. And I loved it.
In a good, okay. Gotcha.
In a good way. And I sort of thought that was definitely like a very powerful experience for her. Not for me. This whole thing about living through your different lives and like seeing your regrets, like I feel like it's very like, and again, like for me personally, it is not very helpful for me to look at regrets, because no matter what I do, if I ever look at any possible regrets, if I ever want to change the outcome, there's always going to be some disaster that could potentially happen that I would have no control over by changing a choice. So that is why I don't even allow myself to think of regrets. And I've gone through and I've done a lot of work with that in therapy and that sort of thing. So I felt like this is not how I felt about it, is not necessarily how other people feel about it. So for me, definitely not a top shelf read, but I acknowledge that this is actually a very important read and many people can resonate with. I think that it can be very profoundly meaningful for others. And I honestly think that I would recommend it, even though it did not have that effect for me. I had a similar feeling with the House in the Cerulean Sea. Mm-hmm. I felt it was a very tedious read for me, but I would recommend it because just because it did not have that effect on me does not mean that I don't think it would have that effect for others. And looking at the various reviews, who cares what I think? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like literally, who like really cares? That was my personal experience reading with it. But I acknowledge that it is a profound book for many others. And that is simply because I feel like I have already come to these conclusions. If I were like younger, or if I had not really explored these ideas, I already am familiar with the different philosophers. I'm familiar with, their theories. And it's only because it's sort of like watching It's the Wonderful Life for the 1003rd time. It will never have the same effect on me now than those initial presentations of ideas had initially. So yeah, I don't know if this makes any sense, but yeah.
No, I was gonna say I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because I think I need to give that disclaimer as well, is that like I'm almost 30 and I've been working in therapy for a long time, like a good while, and I work really hard on this stuff. And so for me, like, regrets aren't a thing. And like a lot of these things are already things that I've come to the understanding of. I know that when I was younger, I used to live my life for other people, not myself. And I've had to work on that. And I've already these have been mountains that I've already had to climb over. And I'm kind of on the other side. And I'm like, I think that maybe that's part of it too, is like what you were saying. And like the other thing that I want to say from reading people's reviews and what people say, and how we've brought up like that, how there's so many lessons and morals in this book, is I have noticed that everyone seems that like it impacted them. Everyone seems to find like one or two things that specifically resonate with them and potentially like helped change their whole perspective. And it's different for everyone. Like some people resonate with the not living for other people. Some people resonate with like, I don't know, there's a million things, but like some people resonate with different parts. And I hear a lot of people say, and I think I just saw Bridget say it as well, like at this point in my life, this was something that resonated with me. And I've seen that so many times. And I think that this book, if we read it in a different part of our life, something else might resonate differently too. Like, it's like, I think so. That's why I mean, like, I agree. Like, I would recommend this book to people, even though I personally didn't have a great time with it. Like, it does have a lot of value and potential in like so many different ways to affect a lot of different people.
And just to add to that, do you guys remember, this was like, Kristin, you weren't there, but this was at the end of our last live when we were just chatting together. And I had mentioned that a book that I cannot even discuss with other people is Great Expectations. It is my ultimate favorite book of all time. And that was a book that presented itself to me at a time where I desperately needed it. And I feel like this book has the potential to be that, and actually is that for quite a lot of people. So yeah.
Going off of that, I'm one of those people who really needed this book at this time.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we chose it for our book club.
I am too.
Yeah. And I'm glad you guys did too, because 100% guaranteed I would have never picked this up otherwise. If this was not a top shelf society pick, it would have never even been on my radar.
Oh my God.
That's so awesome. I'm so glad to hear that.
That being said,
Oh gosh.
it's a top shelf read for me, but I would never in a million years recommend this to anybody. Never.
Are you serious?
Oh.
Never. I don't feel comfortable recommending this book to people.
Olivia.
Yeah, it's the subject matter. It's the subject matter for me.
Yeah.
No, because in a lot of, and I remember this was the part of the conversation that we had after our last live show, like when we were all just chatting. It's almost how I feel about A Little Life. Like, that's a book that obviously has had such a profound impact on so many people. But if I were to read it, I would not feel comfortable recommending it to someone. So it's kind of in the same vein as this one, to where a lot, I'm not going to like put any of like my Goodreads friends on the spot or whatever, but a lot of the reviews, I read a couple of DNF reviews. I read a couple of like negative reviews. It still had ratings and stuff, but again, it was a DNF. The way that all of the issues were presented in this book, if I had read this at the start of quarantine even, there would have not been. It would have been game over, not good, downward spiral. So that's why like I would never recommend this book. Although this is a book that's going to stay with me forever. Like I have gained a whole new perspective. I saw a lot of myself in Nora throughout different aspects of my life to now. Like I've dealt with a lot of these issues that were presented. But yeah, I can't put I wish I could describe it more why I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, it was just a lot, but really good. Yeah. So I guess I'm like, I agree with Kristin, and then I agree with you guys. So
I am so absolutely shocked that there were two of us. Three of us, right? That said that this was a top shelf, and three that didn't.
Yeah.
Because I was entirely convinced that, except for me, everyone was going, and I actually thought Angela was going to think of it the most positively. That is so hilarious.
Actually, I thought Kristin was going to think of it the most positively.
Yeah, and I probably was.
You can always see like such positivity in every book, which I admire that quite a lot.
Maybe, I don't know. I think that me and Emma, or me and Bridget, I guess, are on the same page here, where it's a book that two found us like when we needed it. And I mean, I still probably would have said it was top shelf for multiple reasons, but there wasn't really another option for me when I thought about the lasting impact it's going to have. So,
do you think, like, in 2020, obviously the pandemic happened, do you think that had anything to do with its success? Of being that book that was impactful for people when they were forced to be in solitude?
He talks about solitude. He said
a lot.
He talked about, I actually like tagged that because I thought that was such an interesting thing about when she was in nature in I can't remember the name of the place, but the glaciers. She said she'd been left alone or she'd never experienced this level of solitude before. She thought that solitude was the problem, but that was because it hadn't been true solitude. The lonely mind in the busy city yearns for connection because it thinks human-to-human connection is the point of everything. But amid pure nature, solitude takes on a different character. In and of itself becomes a kind of connection between yourself and the world, basically. So I don't know how that, I thought that was a really good observation because, like you said, like when well, there it goes. It's gone. By the way, this book does not like me because I don't like it. I sat down on the couch and it stabbed me in the back, literally. So I have a mark on my back for that book. It's taking revenge against me.
Matt Haig is like, how dare you?
How dare you? I'm like, hey, I'm a
After
huge proponent.
How dare you?
I love the humans. I do not like this. No, but like that was an interesting concept, as you said, like during a pandemic, because like especially in big like areas where it's cities, like we aren't alone. There's people like sometimes in apartments on the other side of the wall, but it's that we think we need the human connection that makes us feel lonely a lot of the times. And nature really is like a form of connection with the world too. But that was one of like a really good observation that this book did have. But do you think, as you were bringing it up though, would that, like how Ysenia said earlier, would that be almost harder to have read this at the beginning or middle of like more of the lockdowns and stuff because of the touchy subject matter?
I could see it being very therapeutic, but
Well, I mean, for me, what helped me is like the dealing with regrets. Like, sure, there was lots of other helpful stuff, but what really fixated for me was that, like the discussion about regrets. And so, I mean, I had regrets even before the pandemic. So for me, it's not like that would have made a huge difference. But I guess it depends on what you latch onto in this book.
Yeah. Just lost my train of thought.
You're sliding.
I'm sliding.
You're sliding.
Leave for a second.
Alternate Ysenia.
On one hand, I think the pandemic has maybe made people resonate with the overall message of this book, but I don't think I completed my thought earlier about like the DNF reviews and stuff that I was reading. But this is why I think it's harmful too, and why I would never recommend it, is the people that I read that didn't finish the book had a big issue with the whole topic of suicide, and that being that was like the main, it was almost like it was like a plot device, right? So that's what got us into this whole story in the first place, was that initial choice. And a lot of people did not like the way that discussion was started out. However, you would have to read the entire novel to realize the message that he was trying to convey throughout the whole thing. But that's why, like, I think it's more, I can't speak for everybody. Obviously, I'm only me. I can only speak for myself. But I am now at a point in my life to where, like, I too have started really delving deep and getting over my whole relationship with regrets in the first place. A lot of people maybe haven't begun that journey, maybe aren't aware of the things that could be triggering. So that's goes back into my whole reasoning of why I would never recommend it, because it's like, if I had read this book at a point in my life where I wasn't at the place that I am now, it would have been way more harmful than good, in my opinion. I don't know. Now I feel kind of bad, but it's truth. It's my truth, I guess.
Why do you feel bad? That's completely valid.
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
No, because I had that thought too, because like I know people with really bad depression, and I'm like, should they read this book? Because some of the things that's written is very strong feelings about certain things, and I'm like, ooh, that would be really hard to read if you had done this or gone through this, you know? And
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend people look into it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not like a
triggers.
blanket, like, you must read this.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely recommend, like, look into it. A Little Life, I'm kind of like, well, like, proceed with caution.
Yeah. That's why even if you don't use Storygraph, it is an excellent resource to look at content warnings and other people's opinions on these things. Thank you for convincing me to go over to Storygraph, Sarah, again.
That was my goal.
Yeah, awesome.
That was absolutely my goal.
yeah, content warning.
Yes.
Totally. And you know what, too? Content warnings are so important because it is so difficult to predict what content warnings will be applicable for what person. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have no idea, like, what someone has gone through in their past or what could be triggering. Like, animal death can be incredibly triggering for some. And that
shocked me. That scene was intense.
Yeah, so you really don't know. I guess that's just, like, an important thing because, like, we all try to use our voice in some capacity, right, online, whether it be book reviews or, like, videos on books or wrap-ups or whatever, right? Like we can't do everything, but we can at least acknowledge some things. And it's difficult to have a blanket like I definitely recommend this book to everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's like Winnie the Pooh, I really don't think you can just flat out say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Winnie the Pooh has a lot of mental health in it.
I was gonna say Eeyore.
True. Oh, God.
OCD.
And for some, childhood is not a good place to come back to. So,
okay.
Well, you know, it's sort of difficult to find.
She's like, oh,
It's
no.
really difficult to find that one universal book for everyone, isn't it? Because I used to think I knew what that book was, and now it totally is not. So, or that book series.
I don't know.
I hope wizard. That's all I'll say.
What are you gonna say, Stefan?
I don't know. I have for trigger warnings. I know this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, and this is for me personally. I don't like it when people say them in their videos because for me, I feel like they spoil things for me sometimes. And I know some people like, those aren't spoilers. I'm like, but for me, I don't like going into books knowing that these things are coming and like waiting for them and expecting them. I don't enjoy that. But I do think trigger warnings for people are important. So like I don't know, I prefer them when like people are like, there are trigger warnings and like leave a link to go look them up or maybe put them down in the description or something. So like I can avoid reading that. I don't know. I know that's a super unpopular opinion, but for me personally, I just love to not have that stuff told to me ahead of time.
Well, like Ysenia and I were talking about like I had mentioned that I wanted to add content warnings to our posts, right? And then I was like, how do I like sort of tread the line of what is a spoiler and what isn't, right? So then Ysenia sort of suggested to use spoiler warnings ahead of time, but like try and say that in a video. It will be very difficult.
Yeah.
I can understand like saying like for instance, a book like A Little Life, just saying like there are exhaustive content warnings. And if you would like to see them, look into it or check it out.
Yeah.
So but that is the book that is the book for trigger warnings for sure.
But then that's where I get into the conversation of like, I can see, no matter my opinion, I try to see everyone's point of view from all sides, you know? I'm a firm believer of something that may be very triggering to some should not be used as like a plot twist or a plot device.
Yes.
For example, sexual abuse should never be like like a spoiler of a book. You know what I mean? Like, but that's the issue that I have with it. But I see what you're saying though, but like, yeah. I don't know if I'm explaining.
I don't think spoiler is like the right word. I just feel like when I know that those are coming, like I'm just like waiting for this to happen and it changes my experience reading the book, you know? Like I don't think it's a spoiler necessarily. It's just like really changes my experience in the book. So like I think like if I'm putting them in, I would say like either like these have trigger warnings, like look that up if that's something you like you feel like you should do, or like put links or something, you know. I just like when people say them it really does affect my reading experience when they say them in their reviews. And I know that's stupid. It shouldn't, but it does for me.
No,
it does for me too.
I don't think it's stupid at all. No,
I don't think it's stupid.
Because it's like, I don't know, whenever I used to rate books, like I would always be like, what am I going to say that makes this like a 5-star? But like, it's kind of when you know that something's going to happen, you're like, when is this going to happen? Instead of just
you're like just waiting for it.
There's like this other voice in your head now speaking instead of just the story. Yeah,
like the Poppy War, I didn't know trigger warnings going in, and it was like impactful and hard-handed. It was like, wow. But if I would have known going in, I would have just been waiting for it at all the times when it possibly could have happened, and it would have just messed it up.
Yeah. There are definitely, I guess there are definitely some that are just so, like childhood sexual abuse. Like, I think that that's something to have an idea about going in, or to know that there could be something along those lines, because that can be like a traumatic experience to live through, right? So I feel like it is difficult to know exactly like how to tread that line. Yeah.
There's so much gray area in this topic that it's hard to.
Like, too. I mean, like, what's, oh gosh, I'm blanking on what her, Mariana, I forget her name, but she has a booktube, and so she will usually say like what the trigger warnings are, but she does that with every book, right? So you know that she's
going into
you know that she's that she's a reviewer who will do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do we want to wrap up?
Yeah, probably.
Ready?
It's almost 2 hours. Okay.
Oh my God.
My dogs are looking at me like, when are you coming back?
Yeah. Well, if you have made it this far, and a few of us have, hi, Emma, and thanks for sticking with us, then awesome. I guess just to end up, I want to give a reminder of our next live show, which is going to be April 30th. That's a Friday. It's going to be at the same time this one was, so 8 p.m. EST. And we are going to be looking at Clara and the Sun. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.